Hey, welcome to HH Law. I'm John Henderson. Today we are talking about the divorce process, start to finish, and what goes on in between. So what is the total process of a divorce from start to finish? A lot of times people don't know the 30,000-foot view, so today I'm going to give it to you. The initial phase of a divorce starts like this. Somebody will contact a lawyer. The lawyer will do a pretty in-depth interview, probably not only with the lawyer, but also the paralegal. So you're going to do that. That's kind of the first step. Contact legal counsel, try to figure out what your options are in terms of what's going to go on in the case. Right behind that, the first legal action is going to be filing something called a complaint. You will file a complaint, a summons and complaint, just like you would in any other civil court in the state of South Carolina, and that will initiate the divorce proceedings. The defendant, that is your spouse, will then have 30 days to respond to that with an answer. So we file the complaint, opposing party files what's called an answer. Very simple, self-explanatory term saying, I agree with these things or I disagree with these things. So the complaint outlines exactly why you think that the divorce should be sought, what you think the remedies should be, the division of assets, child custody, an assortment of different issues in that complaint. The answer is going to say, no, I don't agree with that, or I agree with these things, but I disagree with these. So once the answer is filed in family court in South Carolina, you enter into what we would call an informal discovery phase, in which both sides are under an obligation to give the opposing side some information. Okay. During that phase, though, there may be a temporary hearing as that phase is kicking off and beginning. So we might give opposing counsel or the other side some financial information, a financial declaration. But that is something that is also going to be required, a financial declaration. And once that financial declaration is filed with the court that says, this is how much money I have, this is what I make, this is what our assets are, both sides do that. That, in fact, is informing the other side, the other party, about certain elements of the case. So there's sort of an informal exchange of information. And somewhere there near the beginning, just to keep us on the process here, is like you file the complaint, there's an answer, exchange of a little bit of information. Then in a lot of cases, you're going to have a temporary hearing right there near the beginning. And that temporary hearing, the purpose of it is to determine what is going to happen during the course of the divorce litigation. So you will have a temporary custody agreement, or the judge will make a decision about that. Who's going to pay the light bill and the water bill and the mortgage and the cell phone bills and an assortment of different mandatory bills that just have to be paid from a household on a month-to-month basis. So we're going to assign who is going to be making these payments, who's going to pay what, who's going to have the children, what kind of visitation schedule. If there also is what we would call separate support maintenance, that's sort of what people think about with like alimony. Like, are you going to give your spouse a certain amount of money for a month-to-month living expense during that temporary period of time? And also child support payments during that temporary period. So that temporary hearing takes place, or both sides can come to an agreement and enter into what's called a consent order as to how things are going to go and function on a temporary basis. And then you're going to enter into a phase of negotiation. And this negotiation phase could last a month. It could last 9 months or longer. But typically, you're going to have somewhere around 6 months or so of negotiation that is going to take place. This will involve further exchange, discovery exchange of information to either side. So whereas in that first temporary hearing, you just had a little bit of the nuts and bolts of the finances, this phase you're going to enter into, and that might be if you have evidence of adultery, that you're going to communicate that to the other side. Or if there's a complicated financial scheme, or one of the parties owns multiple businesses and you have to get a forensic accountant involved, you would get that information to the forensic accountant, who would then write a report. you would also have a guardian ad litem step in. That person is going to be in charge of trying to determine what is in the best interest of the children and writing a report to the court and to both sides. So you're going to have a lot of gathering of information during this negotiation phase. So you're not really negotiating at the beginning of it because everybody wants to know all the information that is going to be available before they start to negotiate. But a lot of times there'll be you'll take steps towards negotiation, sort of a warm-up period. But you're going to get into this negotiation then once you have most of the information. And that will come to a real conclusion at what's called mediation. And mediation is just 1 or 2 days where everybody comes together, opposing counsel and their client, us with our client, and then a third-party mediator who's also a lawyer who has been certified to be a mediator as well, who's going to try to pull all of these things together, help the two sides negotiate a resolution. If that doesn't work, then the next phase is trial. And that is calling witnesses, getting experts, issuing subpoenas for people to come and testify, putting all the evidence out there in front of a judge. In family court, you do not have jury trials, but the judge hears both the factual arguments and the legal arguments and makes determinations on that, and will then afterwards usually take it under advisement after the trial, and some weeks later will issue a ruling on an assortment of different issues that were litigated during the course of litigation. So just to recap, file a complaint, answer the complaint, temporary hearing, mediation, and then trial. And along the way, there's an exchange of discovery and information that helps inform each of those phases as well. I hope that helps clarify what the general process is from A to Z, from filing for a divorce to the final divorce. See our other videos that will also tell you the elements for divorce and some of the more specific details involved. And if you're in the state of South Carolina, be sure to give us a call. We are happy to talk to you over a cup of coffee about what your options are and try to determine if we are a good fit for you. But if you're not in the state of South Carolina, we encourage you to seek a lawyer and the advice of counsel in your specific state. I'm John Henderson, and this is HH Law.